Today we are talking about conduits. This has been a hot topic in the community in general, so I figured that it was time that I took an early look at the conduits that are coming for Death Knight and Shadowlands and talked about kind of, are they good? What are they going to be good for? Who's going to be looking to use this? Like maybe what kind of combinations are going to be good of different conduits. There's actually a whole lot to this system as far as like what you can do with it. And I know it's not the most popular system. I'm kind of like iffy on it. There's certain things I hate. It's pretty obvious what those things are, like the lockout, the weekly lockout for changing them. But the conduits themselves are really cool and do really cool and unique things. So let's take a look at those conduits. All right, so first I wanted to talk about the Death Knight conduits that are actually specific to the covenants and their covenant abilities. So let's go ahead and hop into that one. So conduits in Shadowlands that specifically affect our actual covenant abilities. The first one is proliferation, which is for the Kyrians, and it causes Shackle the Unworthy to have a 100% chance to spread to a nearby enemy each time it deals damage. Now, this has actually been nerfed, and it kind of makes me mad because we're on Wowhead and they should like keep this stuff up to date. But if I click on this thing here, then you can see, all right, cool, that Shackle the Unworthy has a 2% chance to spread to a nearby enemy each time it deals damage. And I have talked to a couple people who are in the beta, and they said that that basically it doesn't ever spread at 2%. If it happens, it's more like a cool, that happened, not something you can actually like rely on or expect to happen. It's just too rare, and that's a good change because before this covenant ability, Shackle the Unworthy was just super good. It was just dominating. All right, so second up we have Impenetrable Gloom, which is for the Venthyr Covenant, and this causes swarming miss damage and dodge chance to be increased by 5% for the first 4 seconds. Now, as you notice, I didn't really talk about this proliferation. There are ranks to these. They've been data mined by Wowhead, but they have not been confirmed by Blizzard. So I'm not going to be talking too much about these. We don't know they're actually going to be in the end game or not. As far as things that have been data mined, generally things that are like they know for sure are going to be there, they confirm it pretty quickly after we actually data mine it. But this has been data mined for a while now, like for a good while, a couple of months at least, and Blizzard has completely been hush hush. So this leads me to believe that they're not sure about it yet. So we will talk about it a little bit, but I'm also not going to be focusing too much on it. So obviously this is cool, 5% increased damage and 5% increased dodge. That's pretty nice. For the Necrolord Covenant, we have Brutal Grasp, which basically makes our Abomination Limb deal 50% increased damage to enemies it pulls to you. Now, a huge thing to like kind of note on this is to enemies it pulls to you. So that means it will not do 50% increased damage just like all the time. It will only do 50% increased damage to enemies after it has pulled them to you. So in PvE, this is kind of like it's focusing on the mechanic that makes it kind of bad for PvE, for a DPS DK at least, because you don't really want to be moving mobs around. That's going to piss your tank off, and it's going to piss your team off, especially if they have a lot of placeables and stuff, and you run the risk of like pulling extra things, which is never good. But it does increase that damage done. In PvP, this is going to be super awesome. You're always going to want to run this in PvP if you are a Necrolord, and that is definitely my plan as a Frost DK. And now for the Night Fae, and this one is actually a really big disappointment. I'm being completely honest with you guys. In my last video, which covenant's best for Frost DK, you guys were like, man, that Withering Ground, bro, like team that with the Conduit and with the Legendary and with the File, and it's gonna be super dope. And I kind of agree with that. Like, it actually does sound like a really dope setup, but I still think it probably won't be great for Frost DK. I think that's totally going to be a Unholy DK thing for most players. Most people I do not think are going to want to go Night Fae, but I might be completely wrong. Anyways, back to the Conduit. This is really kind of disappointing. You guys are saying this Conduit was going to be really good, but it makes Death's Due deal 15% increased damage, and then with the ranks it goes up to 50%. Now that's cool, 15 to 50% damage. That sounds like a lot, but you got to keep in mind that Death's Due only does 3% of your attack power each second as damage. So you're getting a 15 to possibly 50% increased damage on 3% of your attack power. For 2 comparisons I'll make is the Kyrian Covenant Shackle the Unworthy does 175% of your attack power every second. The Necro Lords do 22% of your attack power every second. And Death and Decay and Defile in current WoW do 4% of your attack power every second. So damage wise, not paying attention too much to the strength bonus, that's a whole different thing. But looking at the raw damage it does, 15% increase, even 50% increase. Literally it's 50% of 3%. That's 1.5%. So you're doing 3% of your attack power plus 1.5%. That equals 4.5%. It does 0.5% more damage than Defile, which already is known for doing no damage. It's only used for its side effects, like and that's how Best Do will be used too. But yeah, the conduit's worthless. That's what I'm saying. I could be totally wrong, and please feel free to enlighten me in the comments down below. But I think this conduit is actually hot garbage. Wait till we see the other conduit choices you have. All right, that's all I'm saying. All right, so that was it for the Covenant conduits and how those will kind of change those abilities. Now let's talk a little bit about Frost DK specific conduits. All right, so for Frost DK specific conduits, we have Accelerated Cold, which makes our Empower Rune weapon recharge 5% faster, and it increases the haste amount by 10%. Now that's pretty cool, but I don't know for sure if it's going to be better than the others. This is obviously going to be better in our actual like burst window, but as far as like the most consistent overall damage, and that does apply to PvP and PvE, I want to be really clear. Like, it's like, if you guys have ever played a class where you can't kill a enemy in PvP outside of your burst window, it sucks. It sucks. And Frost DK's been there for like all of Legion, and it's kind of felt that way for me in BFA too. If I don't have my cooldowns, then I'm worthless. So my philosophy is to try and minimize that problem and make sure that, yes, I'm doing good burst damage in my burst window. Obviously, it's very important for PvP, but it's also important to me that I'm able to kill somebody outside my burst window if I need to. If I can, then I should be able to, you know? Let's move on to Biting Cold. So this makes Remorseless Winter deal 2% increased damage to enemies it hits, stacking up to 10 times. Obviously, if you stack it up to 10 times, then that is a potential of 20% increased damage. That's pretty nice. And when we look at the ranks, if they do decide to use these, up to 9% stacking up to 10 times, which of course is 90%. That could be huge. Remorseless Winter is already one of our top damage dealing abilities, even the single target damage, and in AoE it is always our top damage ability. And so if you were to pair this with like Gathering Storm, for example, the talent, then your Remorseless Winter would just be devastating. You do that, Gathering Storm, this plus the PvP talent, Dead of Winter, that increases its damage more, I believe, or maybe it's just a stun, I can't remember for sure. But damn, talk about one hell of a build. One hell of a build. A huge Remorseless Winter. Next up, we got Eradicating Blow, which is Obliterate increases the damage of your next Frost Strike by 10%, stacks up to 2 times. I think this is going to be really, really good. So in the past, when you're talking about like going into two-hand Frost DK here, if you talk about two-hand Frost DK, then generally in the past it was that you don't stack as much Mastery. You don't need to, because most of your damage coming from that Obliterate, and it doesn't scale with Mastery. But in Shadowlands, by the way, I never sold that subscription. I was the two-hand Frost DK that had full Mastery, and I'll just say I never had any problems. Anyways, moving on into Shadowlands, Obliterate is going to scale with your Frost damage. So that's going to make Mastery like the primo stuff. You're going to want Mastery like 100% of the time. I believe, like my gut is telling me that it's going to be Mastery over Verse over Haste for stat priority. But anyways, Eradicating Blow increases your Frost Strike damage by 10%, stacks up to 2 times every time you Obliterate. That's going to be massive. It's just going to give you these huge Frost Strikes and these huge Obliterates. And I think it's really awesome. I think it's going to be really good. I can't even imagine. They have to nerf this in order for it to be bad. And finally, for Frost DK conduits, we have Unleash Frenzy, which makes your Frost Strike increase your strength by 1% for 6 seconds, stacks up to 5 times. This sounds really interesting to me. You basically get a permanent 5% strength buff. That's really interesting. Now, I think it's going to take actual testing to see, is this going to outperform a giant Remorseless Winter, and is it maybe even going to outperform Eradicating Blow? My gut is saying that's probably going to be like Eradicating Blow plus Unleash Frenzy is just going to be like immense constant damage. And if you can fit like a Biting Cold in there, then that's great too. And there are a couple of Soulbind trees where you can get 3 Potency Conduits, but of course you want to take like Brutal Grasp, that Necrolord ability, or one of the other Covenant abilities. That's going to take up one of those Potency Conduit slots. So I don't know. I either Eradicating Blow and Unleash Frenzy I think are going to be like my personal picks, or like Eradicating Blow and Biting Cold maybe. Maybe using Biting Cold for like a Mythic Plus build, and Eradicating Blow and Unleash Frenzy for a PvP build. I think there's a lot of options here. I really love these conduits. You know, there's only 4 of them right now, and I believe Blizzard said they did want to add more. I don't know if they're still planning to do that. I don't know what's up with that. But these are 4 really good, interesting conduits. Now let's talk a little bit about these Blood DK Potency Conduits, and that is going to start us with Withering Plague. So this makes Heart Strike deal 10% increased damage to enemies infected by Blood Plague. That sounds really good. I actually haven't read these Blood DK ones yet because I don't play a lot of Blood DK, but I just do it for shits and giggles. Like I like to solo dungeons and stuff when I get bored. So that sounds really good to me. I like that a lot, and it does have a lot. I wonder what these ranks, they used to actually say what the ranks would do, but that's, I guess that increases 35% increased damage. That could be really good. Blood DK, sound off in the chat. What do you think about these guys, about these conduits? Because I don't know as much as you guys probably do. So definitely looking into that. Definitely interested in seeing what you guys are thinking about these. Debilitating Melody, Potency Conduit. Okay, Debilitating Malady. That's a weird word, malady. What does that even mean? Oh. A malady is a disease or ailment.
Malady.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Malady. All right. All right, learn something new every day. Okay, so Debilitating Malady, it makes your blood boil, increase with damage enemies take from your blood plague by 1% for 6 seconds. Stacks up to 3 times. Wow, so we got 2 conduits that focus entirely on blood plague and increasing damage, which is good because I was playing Blood DK on the PTR, and I can't die. I literally just can't. I soloed the raid target, the Raiders target dummy in Borealis, or no, the Dungeoneers one, the one that fights back. Soloed that thing till it got to 0% health. Like it literally could not kill me. So but their damage is awful. It's actually horrendous. And so yeah, they definitely need some of that. That's pretty cool. Now taking a look at the Unholy DK Conduits, we have Convocation of the Dead. When a festering wound bursts, the cooldown of Apocalypse is reduced by 0.5 seconds. That's pretty cool. So like thinking about how many wounds we actually burst, you could actually get some decent cooldown reduction on this. Probably around a minute, maybe like 45-ish seconds to a minute. That, like, rough math, guys, super rough math. Like, no calculators. I didn't do any math off screen. I literally just did brain math. So like that could be pretty good. That could be pretty good. I like the sound of that. Embrace Death. Sudden Doom increases the damage of your next death coil by 40%. Oh, that's big. That's big. Increase the damage of your next death coil by 40%. Oh my god. Imagine if it increased your death coil damage by 100%. This with Harbingers of Doom, the talent that increases your chance to get sudden Doom procs by 15%. That could be really good. Although I almost feel like that 15% proc rate on that talent's broken or something. It doesn't give you many procs. Like, I mean, seriously, I almost never get a death coil proc. It happens once in the opener, pretty much guaranteed, but after that, I mean, it is super sporadic. So this might be too random for it to be good, but I don't know. That's gonna be really interesting. What do you guys think? This could be really good. If it's not, if you get enough sudden Doom procs, then it could be super worth it. But if you don't get enough at all, then it could very quickly fall behind. Eternal Hunger. Dark Transformation's duration is increased by 5 seconds. That's super good. And then we got like 5,000. These got these huge numbers. I don't know exactly how to interpret that, but I can say that that's pretty cool. It'll be interesting. If it's just 5 seconds, probably not going to be worth a conduit slot. But if it does have ranks and it gets higher, then that could be super, super good. So that's very interesting. There's also like you could mix out like Unholy Pact for some like great, like crazy long burst sequences, and I think there's a legendary that reduces the cooldown on Dark Transformation, so you could get like super high uptime on it too, and that could be great. And we'll be doing a legendary video soon. Don't worry about that. That's coming. Don't worry. All right, so now let's talk about the Endurance Soulbinds, and these are actually shared like across all the DK specs. So all 3 specs are going to get these, except for apparently Blood DK has some of their own, which kind of makes sense. So for the Endurance Conduits, Hardened Bones is the first one. While Lichborn is active, the damage you take is reduced by 5%. Now that's freaking great. 15% at the maximum rank. And I think like if it's just 5% damage reduction, maybe not that big of a deal, but I think that like, especially with these ranks, like that could be super good for PvP. And it really has a lot more functionality to Lichborn too, especially since there's actually times when using a Lichborn can actually like hurt you worse than just like trying to death coil and use other cooldowns, because it makes you undead. So I feel like this kind of like makes up for that downfall to a certain degree. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. Insatiable Appetite, Death Strike's minimum healing is increased by 1%. I'll tell you this one thing. 1%, don't use a 1% conduit. That's a waste. That's a waste. Like now, Blood DKs, ignore that because you have a huge health pool. 1%'s a lot. But you Frost and Unholy DKs out there, don't be using this 1% conduit right here, all right? Not in comparison to Hardened Bones. What this is really going to become good at is like when you're talking about like 8%, which I've been able to look at another screen before and see that, but this increases it by 8%. Now that's massive. 3% is massive. And it's to the minimum healing, by the way. So this is really awesome. I almost feel like Insatiable Appetite should baseline be 2%. Then it would be actually worth taking if it was just the base rank 1 conduit. But at 1%, like I would never choose that over Hardened Bones. Never in a million years. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding and the quick head maths I'm doing in my head, 1% is not gonna make a difference. Reinforced Shell, anti-magic zone's radius increased by 10%. The duration is increased by 1 second. That's pretty cool. This is going to be super great for PvEers when you know you're going to be going into like a magic heavy raid or dungeon. I don't know if they really do that anymore. I'm not a massive like PvEer, but I do know that if you do run into that situation, then talk about being a massive help to your group. And then in PvP, this is obviously going to be great. As far as Blood Death Knight endurance conduits go in Shadowlands, we are looking at Blood Bond. Rune Tap heals you and your party for 5% of your maximum health. Talk about massive. This is going to be massive for Blood DKs. This is just too good. Like, wow, that is really good. Talk about more consistent healing. This is definitely going to be a go-to for Blood DKs, I'm thinking. And then Meat Shield increases the duration of Dancing Rune Weapon by 3 seconds, and while active, your parries increase your maximum health by 1%, stacking up to 2 times for 15 seconds. This doesn't sound quite as good as the last one. It would be interesting to see how these ranks, like what they actually increase about this. If they increase the maximum health part of it, wow, that could be super good. But doesn't sound bad. Increase the duration of your Dancing Rune Weapon by 3 seconds, and your parries increase your maximum health by 1%, but it only stacks to 2 times. I wish it stacked higher. I wish it stacked to like 5%, but yeah, that's pretty interesting. I don't know how super good that is. Let me know in the comments down below if you're like, whoa, bro, that's fucking amazing. You just don't realize it. And finally, we have Finesse Soulbind Conduits for Death Knights in Shadowlands. These truly are shared by all of these specs, so you get Chilled Resilience. Icebound Fortitude's cooldown is reduced by 15 seconds, and to scale up to like, I believe that's actually a minute of cooldown reduction. And that's awesome for PvP. It's absolutely awesome. It could be good for PvP or PvE, just so you can have that, you know, more often damage reduction and being able to heal yourself and get out of stuns if that ever happens, you know, that kind of stuff. But in PvP especially, it's going to be super good. Fleeting Wind, Death's Advance grants an additional 10% movement speed over the first 3 seconds. This is taken directly from the Azurite trait that does the exact same thing. I don't think it's called this though. It's something else. I can't remember what it's called, but it grants 10% movement speed over the first 3 seconds. I personally always take this Azurite trait for PvP. I love it. I absolutely love it. So it's going to be, I'm probably going to be finding myself trying to squeeze that one in there somewhere because I've used to it. I mean, I've played my DK all of BFA that way. So I am probably going to be, this one's definitely high up on my priority list. I like that a lot for PvP. Spirit Drain, successfully interrupting an enemy of Mind Freeze grants 10 runic power. I feel like there's going to be some people who are going to be thinking that this is going to be really good because like of course it infuses more runic power into your rotation, which is great. And it kind of does whenever you, like in PvP wise, when you're interrupting somebody, generally you're about to do a lot of damage. You're going to want to have resources. And so this is going to play into that and make sure that when you do go for that, you know, kick on a healer's heal, that you're going to have runic power to follow that kick up with some pressure. And I think that's a really good, I think that's great. I'm not sure how I feel about it 100%. It is just 10 runic power, you know, so that means we got to take that over one of these others because you generally don't get more than one Finesse Conduits in these Soulbind trees from what I've seen. Sometimes you can get 2, but generally you're only getting 1. And there's even some builds I've seen where you don't have to take any at all. So, like, I would like Spirit Drain, but if I had to pick between that and Fleeting Wind, oof, I'd be hard pressed, man, honestly. Or Chilled Resilience. These are all really good. And then finally we have Unending Grip, which Death Grip slows enemies' movement speed by 25% for until canceled. Basically, like, once Death Grips, you get how it works. Death Grip slows them for a few seconds. So, anyways, for 5 seconds, it slows them. So, anyways, this does sound pretty good. I think it sounds a little less useful than Chilled Resilience or Spirit Drain, and it kind of falls in like similar usefulness, maybe a little less usefulness than Fleeting Wind. In BGs, I could see Unending Grip being really good, because like imagine all the times that you've gripped a Demon Hunter or a Monk who is carrying a flag in Warsong Gulch, and you grip them and then they roll or they zoom or they do whatever the fuck it is that they do, and they're just gone, you know, they're just gone, and you're like, well, that was a waste of things, you know. And obviously, like, you chains of ice them as soon as you grip them, but there is a global cooldown there, so if the timing's not right, then they're just gone, and that sucks. So that could be really cool. I could see this being really good for battlegrounds. How good this will be in other forms of PvP, I don't know. In PvE, it's not gonna be useful at all. Alright, so that was our early look at the Death Knight conduits in Shadowlands. I hope that this video was interesting, and I hope you learned a lot from it. I want to hear, what do you guys think about these conduits? Do you have any cool build ideas? Like, there's so much swimming in my mind. And don't worry, I know a lot of legendaries do play a huge role in it, like how these work. Like, a lot of legendaries work well with them. There's a lot of synergies there. And we will be covering that in an upcoming video. I just want to let you guys know that. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit that like button and check out the videos around here. They look interesting to you. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.